Hello and welcome back, my fantastic friends. With the imminent release of the new Fantastic Four movie, how about we take a dive into the world of someone who's always known for keeping the flame on, someone who traverses dimensions, time, and space. Yup, today's video is about none other than the fiery, pun intended, Human Torch. Created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Johnny Storm as the Human Torch is basically a revamp of the 1939 version of the character, the android Human Torch. Having similar powers as his namesake, Johnny is an indispensable part of the first family of Marvel Comics. With an immature and impulsive nature, Johnny's middle name is Trouble. Somehow, wherever he goes, chaos ensues. Be it a different planet or a corporate organization, you'll soon understand what we're saying. So let's cut to the chase and dig up all the good and not so good stories of this rash, blonde firecracker. Before we get into our explanation though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Johnny Storm and how did he become the Human Torch? One fine day, after an impromptu trip to space, a young thrill-seeking boy received superpowers that allowed him to flame himself up at any time, and that too without any bodily burns. We all know who this boy was, but before becoming a member of the Fantastic Four, who was Johnny Storm? Johnny was just an American high schooler with a passion for hot rods. So what's the story behind his Inferno origins? Let's take a look. Storm lived an uneventful life with his elder sister Sue on Long Island. However, things soon took a tragic turn for them when their mother, Mary Storm, got into a car accident and their father, Dr. Franklin, failed to save her. Heartbroken and depressed after the death of his wife, Dr. Franklin Storm took to alcohol and gambling and ended up with a murder charge on him for allegedly killing a moneylender. Now, having lost their father, too, to legal shackles, Johnny and Sue went to live with their aunt, Mary Gay. Interestingly, the suburbs of Glenville had an impact on Johnny, who found himself fascinated by automobiles despite his mother's fate and went on to become a mechanic himself. Ever courageous and in high spirits, Johnny always had some bits of heroism in him. As a teenager, he selflessly jumped into a burning building to save his friends. He was even threatened by supernatural forces like the demon Zarathos, who wanted to use Johnny's body as his human host. However, he always managed to come out stronger after every trouble, and with the help of archaeologist Max Parrish, Johnny even managed to escape from Zarathos' trap. Some small part of him always knew that he was meant for bigger things. It was a completely different scenario for Johnny's sister Sue, who was dating someone, and no brownie points for guessing who her boyfriend was. Enter the brilliant scientist, Dr. Reed Richards, who convinced his girlfriend Sue, her brother, and the pilot, Ben Grimm, to go into space in a faster-than-light rocket, the Marvel 1. And of course, the three of them just went along. I mean, it's not every day someone offers you a ride in space, huh? The crew was on a mission to reach Spire, an Earth-like planet located 44 light-years away. Johnny, who felt an inexplicable calling to join this operation, underwent vigorous training to become the youngest pilot at NASA and onboarded the unauthorized spaceship as a backup pilot. Unfortunately, everything that could go wrong did go wrong during this trip. The group was exposed to a high dose of cosmic radiation, causing all of them to mutate, and there we have it. Johnny Storm transformed into the Human Torch, with a body filled with fiery plasma. He chose the alias as a tribute to a World War II hero of the same name. Now, we all know what happened after that. This was the start of the team of superpowered adventurers that we know as the Fantastic Four, consisting of Reed Richards as Mr. Fantastic, Sue Storm as the Invisible Woman, Ben as the Thing, and lastly, Johnny as the Human Torch. What was Johnny's role in the early Fantastic Four? As a young and enthusiastic member of the Fantastic Four, a team dedicated to protecting the Earth from science-driven threats, Johnny was often impulsive and fell out with his teammates. One such instance was when Johnny left the group after a fight with the Miracle Man and came across the ruler of Atlantis, Namor, aka the Submariner, who was suffering from post-World War II amnesia. Recognizing Namor from the comics, Johnny offered to help him in a fanboy moment and dropped him back into the sea, hoping to revive his memories. However, upon discovering the ruins of Atlantis, Namor bitterly declared a war on mankind, and the prodigal son returned to the Fantastic Four. Together, the heroes sent Namor packing back into the sea. A little later, a still volatile Johnny planned on joining his cousin's circus and considered quitting the group, but thankfully, he rejoined his companions quickly. Despite being a powerful superhuman, Johnny was a Glenville teenager at heart who often got into superpowered messes. He even tried to maintain a dual personality and hide his true identity from the locals. Sounds like Spider-Man, right? Well, intriguingly, the two became good friends after Spider-Man broke into the Fantastic Four's home, the Baxter Building, and in spite of early misunderstandings, Johnny had a deep respect for Spider-Man. As far as his attempts to conceal his superhuman skills, that was really a futile effort since all the Fantastic Four members were pretty much renowned from the beginning. Famous as he was, Johnny took down several supervillains, and though the list is exhausting, let me name a few of his foes. There's Rabble-Rouser, the Puppet Master, the Wizard, the Terrible Trio, and the Beetle. However, as unpredictable as Johnny was, he didn't always need antagonists to get into a brawl. Once, a high school bully, Mike Snow of the Glenville High Wrestling Squad, intimidated him, and guess what? Johnny accidentally went into a full-blown torch mode with flares all around him and scarred Snow's face. However, things cooled off between the two when Johnny saved Mike's life that night by flying him to the hospital, who in return swore to secrecy. With high school hormones raging all over, Johnny soon started seeing a schoolmate, Dory Evans, who sadly broke up with him for his constant disappearances. Yeah, unlike your best friend, the girl knew all about red flags. However, Johnny's superhero adventures came at the cost of his father, Dr. Franklin's life. When Super Skrull, a galactic villain with the powers of the Fantastic Four, attacked them, the Human Torch managed to confine him inside a cave. Unfortunately, Super Skrull managed to run away and impersonated Franklin Storm and planted a bomb on the actual Franklin's chest, who sacrificed himself to save his kids. The crew then raided the Skrull homeworld and killed Warlord Marat, who authorized Franklin's murder in a redemptive arc. However, this was only the beginning of a recurring conflict between Johnny and the Skrulls. What happened with Frankie Ray and Nova? Even after defeating multiple enemies, Johnny was still a bit of a softie. Yeah, it might sound like we're exaggerating, but hear us out. When Johnny heard about his former classmate, David George Munson's execution, he offered to help the NYPD find the actual criminals. With his help, the police then arrested Hammerhead and various other members of the Maggia gang, thus removing all accusations against Munson. And that's not all. The Human Torch had some serious loverboy energy. He fell in love with Crystalia Amaquelin, the Inhuman Crystal, who ditched him for Magneto's son, Quicksilver. Desperate, Johnny also tried to rekindle his relationship with Dory, but discovered that she was now a married woman with kids. He then briefly dated an auto mechanic, Laurie Melton, before falling for Frankie Ray, who was then working as an interpreter in the UN. Terribly scared of the Human Torch's flames, Frankie eventually discovered that her late stepfather, Phineas Horton, the creator of the original android Human Torch in the 1930s, had hypnotized her into forgetting that he had accidentally bestowed her with pyric powers. It was Johnny who then helped her adjust to this truth and channel her abilities in the midst of a blooming relationship between the two. For a short time, Frankie was even a member of the Fantastic Four. However, when a starved Galactus came to Earth after being betrayed by Terrax the Tamer, Reed Richards did save his life, but Galactus was left without a herald. Frankie agreed to accompany him into space as his new herald, Nova, to save the Earth, and also partly out of her quest for freedom and adventure. While Nova was exploring space with Galactus and leading him to several different planets like Tarnax 4, Johnny felt like any dumped boyfriend. He was comforted by Julie Angel, Frankie's previous roommate, for whom he started growing feelings. However, Julie moved to California to pursue acting, and her friend Sharon's crush on Johnny was also a dead end. Nova, on the other hand, got into a dispute with Galactus. When space adventures started taking a toll on her mental health, she began hiding inhabited planets from him and was discharged from Galactus's service. She then teamed up with the other former heralds and took on Morg, Galactus's new monstrous servant. Though she died fighting Morg in issue 75 of Silver Surfer in 1992, Nova was eventually revived for the 2010 limited series Heralds, marking her return to the Marvelverse. Why did Johnny marry a Skrull, and what followed? In a surprising turn of events, Johnny actually married an alien Skrull. Yup, you heard that right. The story goes something like this. During the events of the Secret Wars, the Beyonder brought a number of superheroes and villains to Battleworld and then compelled them to fight against each other. Amidst all the chaos and bloodshed, Johnny met Zaji, who was a native of one of the planets used to create Battleworld, and she healed him. Though Johnny felt a strong physical attraction towards Zaji, there was no hardcore emotion or feeling involved. Zaji, who initially reciprocated Johnny's advances, soon fell for someone else and chose Colossus over our Human Torch. Sadly for her, Zaji died while rescuing the dying heroes. Johnny never really hit pause on his love life though. Soon after coming back to Earth, he found himself attracted to Alicia Masters, who was the longtime partner of Johnny's teammate, The Thing. However, as destiny had it, The Thing was absent when this new romance was brewing and decided to stay away from the Fantastic Four after learning about Johnny and Alicia. Eventually, the two got married, but the Thing pulled a petty, jealous ex-move. He brought Johnny's ex-flame, Crystal, to the team, who was then separated from Quicksilver. Though tempted to give in to old love, Johnny's loyalty and feelings for Alicia helped him resist the temptation, and Crystal ultimately left the team. However, Johnny soon learned something that shook his whole world. I mean, come on, when has this poor boy ever had an uncomplicated love story? Despite their long romantic relationship, Johnny discovered that Alicia Masters was a fraud. She was a Skrull imposter named Elijah, whose original mission was to infiltrate the FF and destroy the team. But Elijah genuinely fell for Johnny and joined the group to confront Pybok, the Skrull who had abducted the real Alicia Masters and who also happened to be Elijah's lover. In an attempt to compensate, Elijah almost sacrificed herself to save the 4 teammates, but Pybok tended to her and revived her. Shattered by yet another failed relationship, Johnny enrolled at Empire State University, where he was attacked by Devos, Pybok, and even Elijah, unleashing his powers to the extreme, which unfortunately burned down a section of the campus. Following this, Johnny became a fugitive until his brother-in-law, Reed Richards, showed up and offered to sell some of his copyrights to pay for the damages. Just when things started picking up for Johnny, Elijah returned, claiming she was pregnant with his child. This proved to be a lie, and Johnny cut all ties with her. Human Torch and international celebrity, yes, but this boy has the scariest love life we've ever seen. He's dated aliens, imposters, and even a couple of real-world celebrities. Talk about flame on, am I right? What was Johnny's role in Civil War and Secret Invasion? Remember that time when our favorite superheroes started beating the hell out of each other? Yep, we're talking about the ground-shattering Civil War of 2006 and 7, when the superhumans had to choose sides between Iron Man's pro-registration faction and Captain America's anti-act resistance. Now, the Fantastic Four teammates were busy helping Iron Man when Johnny needed their support. He was beaten into a short coma at a nightclub after a squabble over the Stamford incident, which was the inciting incident of the Civil War. The supervillain Nitro blew up the small town of Stamford, including a school, while being pursued by the New Warriors on television. The government responded with the Superhero Registration Act, and many people took it personally. Johnny and Sue decided to join Cap's Secret Avengers after Bill Foster's death in a sectarian battle between the two sides. After Captain America surrendered, the two went back to the Fantastic Four after the end of the Civil War. How did Johnny Storm die and return? In the absence of Reed and Sue, the Cult of the Negative Zone, a spy group associated with the Annihilation Wave, took control of the Baxter Building and breached the portal to the Negative Zone, an antimatter parallel dimension. Upon entering the building, the cult let loose the Annihilation Wave, a seemingly endless army of Annihilus's insectoid soldiers on Johnny, Ben, and the Kids of the Future Foundation, an organization of young minds founded by Mr. Fantastic. The only way to stop them was to close the portal from the other side, and Johnny, ever the fiery hero, volunteered to sacrifice himself. He entered the portal, and for years, fans thought that was it for Johnny. As per his will, Spider-Man even replaced him on the team. However, we eventually did learn what happened to Johnny in the Negative Zone. Despite using his Nova Flame, Johnny failed to eradicate the army and was taken captive and ultimately killed when he refused to open the portal back to Earth. Eventually, he was resurrected by worm healers after many trials. At first, his flames burned the worms every time before they could recover his body, kept on dying over and over again. Eventually, the worms managed to revive him, and Johnny escaped from prison with the help of the Light Brigade. Eventually, they attacked Annihilus, and after taking his cosmic control rod that he uses to control the mindless Annihilation Wave, Johnny opened the portal to return to Earth. What happened in Fate of the Four? After the catastrophic, universe-ending Secret War in 2015, Johnny lost his entire family. Sue, Reed, and their 2 children, Val and Franklin, were missing or presumed dead. To help him deal with this tragedy, Ben convinced him to use Reed's tool, the Multisect, and embark on a multiversal journey to find his loved ones. Johnny soon realized that Ben didn't actually believe that any of them were alive, and the two finally returned to Earth with only the hope that Johnny's family was safe and sound out there somewhere. To his surprise, Reed would call upon Johnny and Ben to help him fight the Griever at the end of all things, who launched an attack on the Future Foundation. After the Griever's defeat, the Future Foundation went on its multiversal journey while the Fantastic Four returned to Earth. Johnny's journey across the multiverse continued when the Fantastic Four went to Spire, successfully this time, and Johnny helped build the Marvel II spacecraft. However, they had to battle the Unparalleled, a group of superpowered guards on Spire. Amidst the confrontation, the Human Torch ended up having a relationship with Skye, an Unparalleled who came with him to Earth to make their relationship work. Not even close to his weirdest romantic entanglement, by the way. How does Johnny generate and control fire? It's no secret that Johnny can create flames from his body by igniting the body plasma to take the form of a literal human torch. He can project both massive amounts of fire, or very little as per his desire, without feeling any heat himself. Johnny is also able to shut off the fire from his arms, legs, or head, allowing others to touch him or letting him touch objects without burning them. In fact, Johnny is literally a sculptor with his flames. He can mold them into rings, spheres, ropes, streams, and sheets, and can even write in the sky with it. Johnny can even create a fiery clone of himself, but it's hard to control. However, it's extremely crucial for the Human Torch to keep concentrating on the flames to maintain their particular shapes. Otherwise, the flames can hold their shape for a maximum of 3 minutes before fading away, unless backed up by additional fire. The torch even has a limited amount of control over fire not generated by him, but within his eye range, and he can even influence its intensity or direction. However, his flames cannot be sustained when exposed to liquids like flame-extinguishing foam or water, or if there's no oxygen in the immediate surroundings. Nevertheless, he can immediately reignite himself once oxygen is available without any harm. Johnny's ability to control fire is basically a piece of art. Once, he even shaved someone's hair with his flames, and in another instance, when he was poisoned, Johnny superheated his blood to burn out toxins. The ability of Johnny to manipulate fire however he wishes is known as pyrokinesis, wherein he uses his mental faculties to influence and control ambient heat energy. A responsible superhuman, the Torch regularly visits fire safety classes at multiple firehouses in New York City and also brushes up on his general knowledge about fire usage. What is Johnny's Nova Flame and how destructive is it? What if Charizard went nuclear? That's exactly what the Torch's Nova Flame is. It's ideally his hottest and highest level of plasma. Though the exact temperature his Nova Flame can attain is as of yet undiscovered, he can stay aflame for about 17 hours at an average rate of energy depletion. This is a big upgrade from the early days of the Human Torch, where sometimes his flames would die out in the middle of a fight. However, if we're talking the full power Nova Flame, that can only be retained for a brief period as compared to his usual fire blasts, but the Torch can hurl all of his body's stocked up energy into an intense omnidirectional Nova Burst. This Nova Burst can be as hot as 1,000,000 degrees Fahrenheit. In a way, the Human Torch can eject bolts of fire similar to the heat burst after a nuclear or supernova explosion. It can impact an area of about 900 feet in diameter. The Torch has even affirmed that his Nova Flame can destroy a mini-moon. However, igniting the Nova Flame causes him to use up all of his energy in one go and entirely drain his flame power. He then needs a recovery period of 12 hours before flaming up again. Can Johnny Storm fly, and how fast is he? Just like Iron Man has thrusters in his suit for flying, and Superman can take off by himself, the Human Torch can also raid airspaces, but in a special way. He has a high hydrogen content in his plasma when it's aflame, which creates a string of monoatomic hydrogen clouds around him. These work as his personal fiery thrusters and grant him enough buoyant energy to float in the sky. While afloat, he can maneuver the flames and control their speed to make a flame jet come out of his feet, which allows him to fly at a speed of about 140 miles per hour. In certain situations, the pace can be accelerated to supersonic levels, enabling the Torch to catch up with the Silver Surfer within the Earth's orbit. The Torch can emit his signature human candle punch, which is basically if someone punched you with a huge ball of fire, and he can lift weights up to 180 pounds in this state simply by mental stimulation. So, the next time you see firecrackers in the sky, pause and wonder if it's actually an ablaze Johnny Storm running his errands. Is Johnny durable in combat? Yes. A straight and blunt yes. Johnny, in his superhuman avatar as the Human Torch, can command immense, phenomenal durability. Given the ability to conserve his plasma state and use it as a protective buffer, his resilience is strong enough to survive Gladiator's punch and several blows from Hammerhead and Namor. That sort of impact would completely destroy a regular person. Can Johnny absorb or manipulate heat? Johnny can absorb plasma or fire into his body without getting injured. In fact, he can extinguish an open fire by soaking up the flames into his body. He's immune to fire and heat, both from himself and external sources, as long as the flames are below his own maximal output, which is enormous. Johnny can also toy with the temperatures of objects by increasing or reducing them. In earlier adaptations, the Torch needed a 5-minute break to recharge after every 5 minutes of flaming up, though. Curiously, in issue 12 of Uncanny Avengers, the Torch tried to absorb as much heat as possible when flying the merged version of Ultron and Hank Pym into the sun in order to shield his teammates Wasp and Rogue. Is Johnny immune to fire and extreme temperatures? By now, we've established the fact that Johnny isn't bothered by any fire or heat, be it internal or external, even when he's not actively lit up. But intriguingly, Johnny is even resistant to cold. In issue 576 of Fantastic Four, when Johnny was in Antarctica, he survived with a front-open jacket, some cowboy boots, and a bathing suit in which he even swam in the freezing Antarctic waters. And he showed no signs of hypothermia or even chilliness after pulling these stunts, proving that the torch can easily withstand extreme temperatures, hot and cold. What are Johnny's biggest weaknesses? As powerful as the torch is, he's not devoid of weaknesses. For starters, it's undesirable for him to stay away from his teammates for long periods owing to a Fantastic Four power synergism. It's a tethering mechanism that allows all the original members to act as one another's power pipeline, but the connection gets severed if the teammates are scattered in different universes and all the members, including the torch, can become powerless. Moreover, the basic energy depletion rate also makes it hard for him to maintain his plasma rate for hours before returning to a solid state, and this, coupled with extinguishing materials like sand or heat-resistant blankets, affect his combustion abilities. In the case of water, Johnny can vaporize up to 5 gallons, but more than that can virtually put out his flame. He then has to wait for the residual moisture to vaporize before reflaming. Any injuries or problems with his physical health can also limit Johnny's power of flame retention, and he suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder after being killed and revived over and over by a nihilist for 2 years. Such memories are bound to haunt anyone, superhero or not. Do Johnny Storm's organs burn when he turns into the Human Torch? Johnny can turn into the Human Torch anytime, anywhere, without any injury on the surface, but one question looms large. What happens to his internal organs? Well, according to a Reddit theory, Johnny does not actually convert into plasma, but remains within an exothermic plasma cover. This hypothesis has multiple justifications, like if he actually became plasma, it would be almost impossible for him to return to his human form upon coming into contact with water. Rather, he would show signs of the usual plasma-water reaction and lose all of his internal structure. Moreover, in order to actually completely turn into plasma, he would have to significantly increase in volume. Also, what is plasma? Basically, it's a state of matter with such a high content of energy that the atoms lose their electrons. Now, in such a state, Johnny cannot ideally punch or induce a knockdown. Thus, the physics hint that something solid is inside that flame of his. Moreover, we can see in various renditions that Johnny selectively flames up his hands or legs without fully surrendering his human form. This speculation is further escalated by the claim that Johnny ideally dons a kind of flame suit, keeping his internal organs safe from the fire. In an alternate scenario, if Johnny does become plasma every time he's ablaze, all of his bodily elements like food, probiotics, hair, and everything else would vaporize, making him highly susceptible to disease. So, the possible conclusion is that Johnny creates a field of highly energetic plasma around his body while keeping his physical form intact underneath. What happened during the Reckoning War? The Reckoning is actually a faction of extraterrestrial species known as the Prosilicans who have a huge fleet of warships. Upon learning about their history, Reed Richards tried to come up with a plan to stop the Reckoning's evil schemes of getting revenge on the cosmic beings known as the Watchers, who were stealing and supplying the latter's technology to alien races like the Kotati and the Brotherhood of the Badoon. In the meantime, Johnny wanted to save Spire from an attack by a nihilist and his army and left by himself on this mission when Reed refused to support the cause. Johnny then won the support of the Spire to aid him in his fight against the Reckoning, and together they helped many civilizations and cosmic heroes before Reed finally scared off the Reckoning with his ultimate nullifier. However, having lost all of his knowledge after this, Reed was unable to restore Johnny's powers to normal levels. An angry Johnny decided to stay on Spire before using a machine to reverse his powers to their original degree and eventually returning to Earth. How did Johnny cope in Fantastic Four No More? There was a time when the Fantastic Four was actually disbanded. As surprising as it sounds, let's check out what actually happened, and most importantly, how our blue-eyed boy Johnny took it. When the Baxter Building was invaded by a horde of aliens from negative space, Mr. Fantastic teleported the building 1 year into the future, leaving the aliens stranded in space using his science-coded technical moves. However, his children, Valeria and Franklin, along with Ben's adopted kids, were inside the Baxter Building, which means they would be gone for a year. This shattered the team, and Reed's nonchalance added to their anger. Fanned by public discontent, the team finally split, and everyone, including Johnny, went their separate ways. Johnny even took on a new name, Jonathan Fairweather, and continued his heroic escapades even though it was illegal. With this new identity, he landed a job at Shopland, but soon figured out the miserable working conditions all the employees had to endure in this company. What better time could there be for his Human Torch conscious to take over, huh? As the Torch, Johnny confronted their boss, Mr. Merrill, which didn't really go well. He then revealed himself before his co-workers, and together, they made Mr. Merrill pay for his crimes. Yeah, it was kind of like horrible bosses in an alternate universe, but with the Human Torch instead. However, as fate would have it, Johnny rejoined his team members to fight a parasitic alien being. Though heartbroken over the disappearance of their children, the Fantastic Four managed to move past it and defeat the Xenomorph. In an emotional moment, Johnny realized that Reed too missed the kids and was merely putting up a strong face after the Baxter Building incident. Eventually, all of them reconciled and reformed the first family again. The four then shifted to their new home, the Fantastic Farmhouse, an old farmhouse belonging to the Thing's aunt in Benson, Arizona. After a year, their children and all the other people in the Baxter Building returned, making it a picture-perfect family once more. How powerful is the Human Torch compared to other fire wielders? The Human Torch, in all his flamboyant flaming form, isn't the only character in the superhero genre, be it DC or Marvel, who can manipulate fire. For example, in the Marvel lore, the entity the Phoenix can manipulate cosmic fire and warp reality, while Firestar, the mutant, can generate intense heat by producing microwave radiation. Thus, in terms of raw power, they can even subdue the Human Torch. Moreover, Firestorm of DC Comics has the ability to control fire at an atomic level by manipulating nuclear energy. So when it comes to destructiveness, Firestorm can easily beat the Human Torch, but wait, he doesn't enjoy the mobility and agility that Johnny has. In conclusion, though these biggies can challenge the Human Torch in terms of brute power, the latter's versatility and his combination of skills like heat resistance, flight, pyrokinesis make him a force to be reckoned with among other fire wielders. Does Johnny Storm have electric powers? While Johnny can turn into a ball of burning flame at will, some fans can't help but speculate whether the Human Torch has an electromagnetic side effect. We know that sounds pretty stretched, but knowing how twisted Marvel can get, it's not that long of a shot. When Johnny is aflame and his body is engulfed in superheated plasma, the same state of matter is found in a lightning bolt or the sun. In that sense, the plasma is ionized gas filled with electrically charged particles, and in physics terminology, it can react with electromagnetic fields. That would mean Johnny unknowingly creates a somewhat weak magnetic field to shape and manage fire around him, and that would explain his abilities of pyrokinetic flight, hurling fireballs without sudden explosions, and most importantly, why sometimes electronics around him go awry. It's true, he's no Thor or Magneto, but this speculation suggests that Johnny might be able to generate just enough electromagnetic control to stabilize his plasma, more like an invisible web holding his flames in place. Maybe Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were just ahead of their time, because think about it, you're in the 1960s and drawing plasma that looks like lightning. Rookie mistake or futuristic choice? Honestly, it could have been either. Could the Human Torch really lift Mjolnir? We all know what the big deal is about Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. Unless you're someone as righteous and virtuous as Thor himself, you're not worthy of lifting it. However, Johnny Storm, or at least a version of him, did wield Thor's power in one unusual event. A decade back, in issue 4 of Siege by Felipe Andrade and Kieron Gillen, when Marvel had just launched its Secret Wars storyline, the world was basically an assemblage of the multiverse's puzzle pieces. Consequently, the multiverse's Thors were gathered into Doctor Doom's Thor Corps, which included godly variants of the Fantastic Four. Here, Johnny's form is actually a force infused with Odin's divine powers. While the Human Torch Thor variant was just a fleeting blip in the larger Secret Wars narrative and did hold Thor's powers, one cannot help but wonder whether Earth 616's Johnny Storm would be able to wield Mjolnir, because to date, no other member of the Fantastic Four has ever actually lifted that hammer. Whether it's for lack of trying or an absence of the desired qualities, do you think the actual Human Torch has what it takes to pick up the Asgardian hammer? Marvelous verdict. And that's a wrap for today. Occasionally burning buildings, Johnny Storm has burned his way into the hearts of all superhero fans. From teenage tantrums to intergalactic battles, this reckless youthful lad has managed to carve a niche for himself in the Marvel lore. As haughty as he is, Johnny would probably grill marshmallows on his fingers, but beneath this smug look is a boy who's dealt with deaths, heartbreaks, and plenty of loss. Johnny Storm's journey as the Human Torch is a tale of courage, redemption, and growth. Keeping aside all his flashy stunts, stunts, he's a hero who's loyal, honest, and dedicated. Indeed, Johnny doesn't always make the best choices, but you can always count on him to save the world. So there we have it, guys. Marvel's very own hothead with a hotter skill set. I mean, quite literally. So the next time you light a matchstick, think what that little flame could do in the right hands. If you liked our content, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one. Until next time, as Johnny would say, flame on.